Hi everybody at YouTube, this is Christian Brindle and I'm back again with another insurance video where I explain the difference of some of the most confusing things in the insurance world, specifically the Medicare world, because that is my specialty, that's what I do. But today I'm going to talk about a topic that has to do with more than just Medicare. You'll see this in a lot of different types of insurance, whether it's marketplace plans, Obamacare plans, whether it's group plans, retiree plans. You'll see this type all over the insurance industry and in all different facets of insurance programs. And that is HMOs and PPOs. What are they? What do they do? What's the difference? Which one's better? We're going to break down all of that right now. So basically, we're going to start out, we're going to start out with an HMO. We're going to talk about the HMO first, and then we're going to talk about the PPO second, and we're going to talk about how they're the same and how they're different, which one's better in different areas, all that jazz. Alright, so if we're talking about the HMO first, it's important to talk about what the HMO stands for. Now, a lot of people don't know what the HMO stands for. A lot of people just know about the bad things about them. HMOs get a really bad rap, but they don't all work the same way. An HMO stands for health, so health maintenance organization. Organization. Health Maintenance Organization. That's what an HMO stands for. But what are some common things that an HMOs usually have in common? Well, now what are some common things that an HMO, a lot of them have in common? What are some characteristics? Well, HMOs really have an agenda to constrict you into a network. Now, all plans, typically, like HMOs and PPOs alike, have networks that you typically either have to stay in or it behooves you to stay in the network. That's not the difference here. That's not what we're talking about. An HMO, however, is a lot more restrictive as far as out-of-network coverage. So HMOs have networks that are hard to get out of. Typically, HMOs will not cover you out of network unless it's for certain services. Now, not all HMOs are going to work exactly like this way, but most HMOs will cover a person in the event of an emergency room if they're traveling or if they're out of the network or if they're in another state. That's usually what to expect from an HMO. I've seen HMOs that will pay for people to go to Instacare or urgent care services, but typically, if you wanted to go to, let's say you live in Utah. I'm in Utah. My company's in Utah. Let's say you were going to Colorado, California, Florida, someplace like that on a vacation, and you were staying for about a month and you wanted to go see a primary care physician for a cold you got, or let's say you came down with the flu. You could not do that. Now, some HMOs might pay for you to go to an Instacare or an urgent care clinic, but they wouldn't pay for a primary care physician visit, a surgery, a specialist visit, those type of things. Now, there are exceptions to every rule in the insurance industry because there are some HMOs that are a little more flexible. Some are more flexible than others, but most by nature really stick to the networks. These networks are also based off of your service area. So a service area is going to be specifically where you live. Usually there are a group of counties in where you live. Some plans will cover you in an entire state. It just depends on the type of plan, the insurance company, and how the program works specifically. But service area is going to determine your network, counties in which you can get coverage in network in. And a lot of times in that service area, you're going to have lists of hospitals and doctors. Hospitals and doctors, and typically you have to stay in their network of hospitals and doctors. Going out of network without a few exceptions will make it so you pay 100% of the bill. So they give you very little flexibility to go in and out of network. You got to follow me in here on this. So another thing that an HMO typically does, now there are exceptions, I have worked with plenty of HMOs that don't do this, but I'd say typically 9 out of 10 will have what's known as a gatekeeper. Now, what is a gatekeeper? In the insurance industry, in the insurance world, a gatekeeper is a doctor that controls who you can see in the form of a specialist. They are the ones that decide who and when and how many times you can go to see a specialist. A gatekeeper doctor usually is your primary care physician, and they have to end up writing you a referral before you can see a specialist type of doctor. And normally, you'll see those with an HMO, but not all the time. There are some HMOs that don't operate that way, that don't require the referrals. But from my experience, usually 8, maybe 9 out of 10 HMOs operate that way. Gatekeeper doctors. A lot more controlling and really condensing where you can go and where you can get coverage. But there are some positive things to an HMO. So let's talk about the positive things of this. Because an HMO condenses your coverage like this and they really control it, they save a lot of money in only having to work with certain providers, okay? And because of this, they're able to offer you some benefits and positive things that a PPO normally cannot do. Not all the time, but normally, like I said, 8 to 9 times out of 10. So the good things about an HMO are going to be normally you are looking at lower copays, okay? Typically they can offer you lower copays because all of your care, everything that you're getting done is controlled by them and it's in their little network of hospitals and doctors. Some HMOs have bigger networks than others, and sometimes that can affect copays as well and co-insurances. Okay, so typically you're going to have lower maximum out of pockets with an HMO. Typically, like I said, not always, but normally. The other thing with HMOs is a lot of times, especially in more populated areas, I don't know, depending on where you might live, a lot of time HMOs will also have more DVH and extra benefits. A lot of times you will see PPOs don't carry a lot of extra dental, vision, hearing, and extra benefits in general as an HMO does. They're able to take the funding that would require them to cover you in more out-of-network situations, and they place them into extra benefits, dental benefits, hearing benefits, ear benefits. Some of them pay for transportation benefits. A lot of what I'm talking about is in the Medicare world, but this applies across the board and basically in all situations in the insurance industry. So, an HMO, what have we learned so far? An HMO, for one, has some negative sides, but they also have some positive sides. So the positive sides are normally you'll have lower copays to work with. Lower copays when you go to the doctor, lower copays when you go to a clinic. Typically lower out-of-pockets because of the controlled cost. A lot of times you'll have increased extra benefits, so you have extra things that are covered that you might not get in a PPO at times. A lot of this depends on where you live, but this is normally the status quo. Like I said, there's exceptions to every single rule. What else have we learned? A lot of times an HMO has their negatives as well, which is they control their network. The network is more condensed. You don't usually see as much of a bigger network, and a lot of times they give you little to no flexibility of going in and out of network. Typically, the only flexibility and example that you can get would be going to an emergency room. So, break it down. Nutshell, what do we got with an HMO? We have condensed network, limited flexibility to go in and out. They control your coverage. You are kind of stuck in that little bubble, but you get extra benefits. So if you don't travel a lot, if you don't go out of state, if you kind of stay in the same area for most of the time of the year, you don't travel a whole lot, an HMO might do you better because you'll stay where you need to go anyway, and you'll get extra benefits and lower out-of-pocket and copays on top of that. So that's your HMO. Now let's talk about PPOs. What does a PPO stand for? Let's start with that. A PPO stands for... So what does a PPO stand for, first of all? A PPO stands for Preferred Provider Organization. Okay? So the PPOs are basically the opposite of the HMOs. The PPOs give you more flexibility to go in and out of network. But sometimes their copays are going to be a little bit higher, and sometimes they'll offer less benefits as far as the dental, vision, hearing is concerned. So let's talk about the negatives first of a PPO, because that's how we started with the HMOs, okay? So the negatives of a PPO would be high copays normally. Usually, a PPO will have significantly higher copays than an HMO. Of course, I don't mean to keep beating this horse to death. It all depends on where you live. This is most of the time, this is typically, okay? The other thing is they're not only going to have high copays, they're going to have higher maximum out-of-pockets. Okay, so a maximum out-of-pocket, for those of you who might be watching that may not know, is basically the amount you pay in copays or co-insurances in a calendar year. It's like your safety blanket. It's the most you can end up paying in a calendar year in medical bills, whether it be copays, co-insurances. In some situations, they're deductibles. It's like your safety blanket. So let's say, for example, I have a $5,000 deductible, but a $7,000 maximum out of pocket on my insurance. Let's say I fall when I'm done making this video and I crack my head on the door over there and I have to be rushed to the hospital. I pay I have an $8,000 bill, okay, for my hospital visit. I'm going to meet my $5,000 deductible as far as what I pay, and then the insurance will pay $2,000. So out of my maximum out of pocket, $5,000 of that has gone towards the $7,000 that I have per year, and then the other $3,000 was paid for by the insurance in that type of situation. That's just an example. Okay, so high out-of-pocket cost. Basically, the higher the out-of-pocket, the higher risk you are in if you have a lot of issues or you have to use the plan a lot. Lesser extra benefits, okay? So you're not going to have as much dental, typically. You're not going to have as much vision, hearing, extra benefits, over-the-counter items, transportation benefits if plans in your area offer that. Just not going to have as much most of the time. So your coverage just isn't quite as good. But, of course, because of that, you have some good things that come with a PPO. Primarily, flexibility. A PPO is going to be incredibly flexible. They will let you go in and out of network. Typically with most PPOs, you can see any doctor you like in the country. Now the way that they typically work is they too, like an HMO, will have a network. But if you go out of your network for any reason, so let's say with a PPO, this is your network. Right here. Okay, this is your network. They give you a network just like an HMO. The difference between a PPO and an HMO is if you go outside of this network here, they will still cover you, just not as well. So let's say in network, your doctor copay is $10. Okay? $10 for your doctor copay. Out of network might be $20. So it'll still cover you. Let's say that the doctor visit in general is $100 if you didn't have any insurance. They pay $90 of it here, but over here they only pay $80 of it. See? So your coverage isn't quite as good out of network, but they still give you the flexibility and the options to go in or out of network. This usually works really well for people that like to travel a lot, or they do a lot of traveling for either for work or for pleasure, vacation, whatever the case may be. Okay? So, flexibility. The next good thing about a PPO is no gatekeeper. PPOs are not going to make you get referrals like an HMO will typically. You don't need a referral from your primary care physician to see a specialist, as long as the specialist is in network, or even if they're not, usually with a PPO, you can get coverage. So, they're more flexible in that regard. Typically, a lot of HMOs will cover, if they're really big insurance companies, they'll cover other states the same way that they will cover your in-state as well. They give you travel benefits and where you can get in-network coverage in certain areas of the country. There's just a lot more flexibility with a PPO. Okay, so we've established kind of the good and the bad of a PPO. Let's wrap it up in a nutshell. The good is it's flexible. It'll let you go where you want, in or out of network. You don't need referrals. You're not restricted. You can go pretty much where you like. The bad thing is it's not going to cover these visits as well. You're going to have higher copays, higher co-insurances, and higher out-of-pocket in general. I hope this video helped you out. And as always, I wanted to take a minute at the end to talk about Medicare Guidance. If you're on Medicare, or you know somebody who's on Medicare who may or may not know their options, maybe they think they're on the best plan for them, maybe they're getting ready to get onto Medicare, or they're already on Medicare and they're just lost. Okay, and then Medicare is a confusing aspect. Let's be clear. For a lot of people, it's very confusing. My book helps clear that up easily. It's in good 50 pages. The font is big. You should be able to get through it in a day, if not a few hours. I'm going to put a link down in the description. It's on Amazon for less than $5. For that much, I'm practically giving it away. And if you or your family member needs help with Medicare and you want to make sure you're making a good decision, this book can help you no matter where you are, no matter what your situation is. Pick it up. It's my way of helping you folks. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next video.
Hi! Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for future videos.